Today, we're talking about generosity, but not the kind that leaves you resentful, overextended, or saying yes when your body is screaming no. I'm joined by Alison Patterson, who spent over 2 decades inside nonprofit fundraising and had a moment where she realized that generosity had quietly turned into obligation for her and so many women that she knew. Allison is now a generosity strategist and the founder of Patterson Philanthropic Advisors, and she helps women and founders create giving plans that actually feel aligned, sustainable, and joyful again. In this conversation, we're unpacking how to give without guilt, how to say no without shutting down your heart, and how generosity can support your family and your life, not drain them. So, let's get to it. If we haven't met yet, I'm Aimee Cerka, money confidence coach and bookkeeper, and over the last 13 years, I've helped over 1,250 women get out of survival mode and make money simple so they can feel safe, clear, and confident with their finances. No shame, no restriction, and definitely no giving up your coffee to get there.
Welcome, Allison. I'm so excited to have you on Money Simplified. And for our listeners, they don't know, this is the second time that we're doing this. So kind of fun. Hopefully, tech and everything is cooperating much better for us now. But I know our first conversation was such gold, and we're going to recreate it and go in a little bit different of a direction today. So I'm really excited for this. To kick off, why don't you kind of tell listeners how you came to become a generosity strategist? Because I love that title, and I think there's a lot of curiosity there.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. I'm really honored to be here with you and your listeners. So, I spent 25 years as a development professional working primarily for small to mid-sized organizations. And what I was finding was people, everywhere just wanted to be generous, but they were feeling overwhelmed. They were feeling like there was so much need in the world that what they had to give wasn't going to make a big difference, and they didn't understand their impact. And so it really hit me one night when I was at a cocktail party, and I was just there. And there was this woman who I respect and admire in our community. And we made eye contact. And then she basically avoided me for the rest of the cocktail party. I was like, what's going on? But I remembered that I had just called her about renewing her giving for that year. And what I realized is that she just didn't want to tell me no. And I just knew that there had to be a better way. There had to be something better for people out there who wanted to be generous, but didn't feel like they had enough or didn't feel like their giving mattered. And so I said, let's get some strategy around here. Let's get some intention around this. And let's help the everyday change maker understand that we all make change every day.
I love that. And you touched on a couple key things we're going to really get into throughout the episode. So the first, though, the difference between obligation and intention, because I think we've all given out of obligation before. And from an energetic perspective, how much resistance and resentment you create in your body when you're doing it out of obligation. And giving is such a powerful tool. It's not about giving to get something, but when you're in true just giving energy, it's such a high vibration thing. And if you're giving out of obligation and creating resentment, you're not maximizing that magic and the potency that giving does have for you. So why don't you kind of help, what's the first step that listeners could take to kind of make the shift between differentiating between the obligation and the intentional giving?
Well, so that's part of the reason why I appreciate talking to you so much is that you understand, and we use different language around that. I call it joy. But I would say that the very first step in getting out of that obligation versus intention is really creating that why statement, that mission statement. I know that you work with your clients around that, just in terms of setting strategy behind how they're using their money. And so when we are giving, we can think about that in terms of a budget item, whether we're thinking about our time, our money. Literally, I described it to someone today as my most valuable resource that I have to give you is my Rolodex. And so creating a very clear vision of what we stand for, what we value in our lives and in our giving is that very first step. And so that's the first step that I take my clients through. It is something that anyone can do, even young children can do this. I have a workbook that I take people through if you want to just do it on your own. So I just feel like if we can get grounded around what matters to us, what's going on in the world that we feel like is on fire, maybe it's hunger, maybe it's homelessness, maybe it's our environment. When we get clear on those things for ourselves, we then have the ability to have a more joyful no, intentional no, but we also know that how we're giving is very intentional rather than just saying yes to someone, because they asked.
I love that. I always say, like, the strategy piece, if you aren't being intentional with your money, like somebody else is. The marketing and advertising industry is like billion-dollar industry. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I market and advertise as well, right? Like those things are in place, but we have to set the intention of where we want our money to go. So I love that. When we've gotten clear on what we want to intentionally give to, or who we're intentionally giving to, those causes that are important to us. And I have to side note, like here, I love how we all have different areas. Like we're all designed to have different areas that we're passionate about. And there's not anything wrong with whatever area you're passionate about. Like that's what you are called to do. Like you're here to fill that void really in giving because there's a need there's a void there. So it's important that we do these things because you're filling a hole that only you can fill. Like that's what you're called to do.
Absolutely. And I like to tell my clients that also comes with a level of trust. So so you have the ability to say no because you trust that there's someone else out there who is going to say yes. And it also doesn't mean that this no is forever, right? So I like to give an example of I gave my sister a gift to an organization that was very passionate about at the time for her birthday. And that organization called me, as they should, and they asked me to renew that gift. And I had to practice saying, I am so grateful that there are people out there who are so passionate about what you are doing. I am so grateful that you called me. Thank you so much. And actually, I have a plan for how my generosity works in the world, and this doesn't fit right now.
Perfect. And I was about to ask how we say no without guilt. And there we go. Is there anything else you would want to add to that? Any other, I don't really want to call them scripts, but like any other thought processes when we're sharing, like it's a not right now?
I would say also, because when you learn how to get that intentional piece down, I encourage people to do it often. So there are times when I go through this exercise 3 times a year, 4 times a year. And it might not always come back the same because there might be something that's inspiring me. Now, do I need to shift my bigger plan? I don't know. However, I would just encourage people that because they understand their why, they can check in on their why um, often. But then again, to just trust and know that by saying no, you're also giving someone else the opportunity to step in. So you kind of are doing them a favor. I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but you're giving someone else that opportunity too. And so I think when we can frame it in our minds that way, then we do understand our purpose. We do understand where we fit.
Yeah, it's definitely, we trust in ourselves that we're saying yes to the right things, but then we have to trust in others as well, that the people who are supposed to step up right now and are doing the things, like they're going to do their part. And I trust for them to do their part. And I trust that whenever it's my time to contribute here, I will know that.
Absolutely.
Let's get into a little bit of like practicality because it's brand new year as this episode is coming out. And it's the time where everybody's like refreshing their budget. They're looking at the numbers because, we're going to start fresh, all of those things. How do you recommend, because, I've got thoughts on this, but how do you recommend prioritizing your giving within your budget?
So I myself do a generosity reset where I help people to budget. But here is what I will tell your listeners, and as you're working with them too, my guess is that they are already giving. And as they're looking at their budget as a whole, they may not be, itemizing on their taxes, which most of us aren't, but more than likely they are giving. They're giving their time, they're giving their money. So I try and help people think of a budget that is kind of like 70-20-10. So 70% of what you're doing should be in that focus area, in that clarity moment. And take 20% and budget to say yes. Budget to be in community with your family and friends so that when someone says, would you support our school for this fundraiser? Or would you do this? You can have a joyful yes. And you don't have to feel guilty about saying yes. And then keep 10% or, again, use the same strategy that you use within your budgeting systems. Save some aside because you may be inspired. There may be floods in your hometown or wildfires, or your coworker down the street may lose their job. And so I think that it's important for us to keep that inspiration piece as we're budgeting. It's easier to budget our our money, than it is. I find it much more difficult than budgeting our time. And the people that I work with, I think, struggle most with budgeting time. And so, but you can still think of your time in that same way. So, encouraging you to look back at what you did last year in 2025 and make sure that it still resonates with that focus that you've just created for yourself, the change you want to see in the world, and then say, can I put 70% of my resources into that bucket, right? So that would be how I would approach that giving aspect, because we all give, even if we're giving to our family and to our friends. I mean, I also don't relegate generosity to simply nonprofits. because many of us are generous, every day, just walking around, handing someone something they may need in that moment. And maybe that's someone on the street, but maybe that's someone in your family. So,
I love that. There was a while there that I didn't necessarily have, well, we'll get to like the cost of goods sold and how I do that like as a business here in a minute. But I didn't have like a personal cause that I was really donating to, that I really felt called to. And I created a savings account for my listeners. They know I love Discover for that, because you can have as many savings accounts as you want. There's no minimum, all those things. So I had a Discover savings account, and it was just this little nest egg that kept growing. And I knew whenever there was something that I was called to, like I had that fun little nest egg that I was going to be able to give from. So if there's nothing that's calling you right now, that's a great like little strategy there. So maybe the 70%, like you didn't have something that's come to mind, and set aside the money to be intentional that you are going to give that, because again, we are generous. But on the flip side, if you're listening to this and it's like things are really tight right now and I would love to be more generous, but it just doesn't feel feasible, start with what you can. Like it all matters. Those little things matter. I did a weekly practice for forever. It was called Wealth Wednesday, and it was a random act of kindness for a stranger involving a monetary exchange, whether that was paying for coffee for somebody behind you in the drive-thru or whatever it might be. I don't drink coffee, so that wasn't really me.
yeah.
My go-to at the time was I would stick like $10, $20 in a diaper box. So when somebody opens the diaper box, like it was that unexpected gift, because I still have kids in diapers and I know how expensive that is, but it's doing something. It's not, there's no judgment, there's no shame. It's not like you have to get to this place that it's enough. Like being in that generous space, regardless of where you're at, is really going to be life changing, and not beating yourself up because you want to be able to do more. Like approach it from the space of knowing, and again, that self-trust that you're going to be able to do more at one point, and trusting again in others to fill that need until you're able to fill that need. Now, for those that things are feeling tight, or maybe it's just an addition, what are some ways that they could use maybe their time or voice, other things, not just dollars, to be able to give in their current season that they're in?
Absolutely. So I think it's really important. So with our time, it is very important to be intentional with our time, even if we want to do more. So I think, first of all, it's just evaluating what we have. And so what kind of time do you really have? Because when we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. And so when my daughter, who's just gone off to college, was young, my husband and I had to pull back from some of the nonprofit boards and volunteering that we were doing on a more weekly basis, because we just didn't have that kind of time. So what we did is, as a family, hunger is something that shows up on both sides of our family in terms of something that we both value. So we would choose different times of year and maybe pack something for our local food pantry. Again, it didn't have, it could be a birthday kit that, and even if we just did one, right? We could do it in a way that wasn't so super difficult for us. So just picking something. I love what you just said about just choosing something and just making it a practice in your life, so that you begin to build that muscle, because that's exactly what it is. And with our voice, sometimes what that is it's speaking up for someone who doesn't have a voice. We all have different platforms within our family, within our faith organizations, within our communities. Hey, get on Nextdoor and just be kind. And speak out for something that you love, right? So those are ways that don't cost us anything, but we use our voice for what we value and what we believe in.
That be kind there was key. We can, there are some people who forget how to be kind. So even just being kind in general, but especially using your voice is going to make that message so much more potent.
Yes.
Now, I kind of hinted at this, and you have talked a little bit, that might have been last time we reported, about being generous, like as a brand and a brand value. And I know for myself, 10% of all revenue that comes in through my company is given back to Operation Underground Railroad to help fight against child sex trafficking.
Yes.
And as a tactical note, because of the way that it's structured, that is actually tax deductible. Like you got to get with your accountant, all those things, but like then it's leveraged in multiple ways and it's just, I don't know. I love that. I love that I'm able to be more generous through my business. It's tied automatically, it's percentage based budgeting, it's all of those things. Like it's tied as the revenue grows. It's all done automatically in all the ways that I love. But I'm also able to create an impact and helping my customers and my clients kind of buy in to that. So I feel like that's kind of like a great place to end this. Do you like what thoughts? What do you want to add to that
Well, first of all,
perspective?
thank you, and I love it, and I love that you use your voice to talk about the organization that you've chosen. So I do the same thing. I partner with different um, organizations every year. So they typically are around women and entrepreneurship and how we build that up. So I give 10% back. I give any of my clients the ability to uh, to either donate the 10% of what they're paying me to that organization, and or I give them the ability to I ask them, I say, well, what would be an organization that would be meaningful to you, and I will make that to that organization for you in your name. So for business owners, what I think is really relevant here is how you begin to talk about that, because a lot of us just don't. It's just that humble thing that we do behind the scenes. And so, right? And so, what I would say is maybe you decide to be a little bit more visible and you tell your clients in an email twice a year, or you put it as a tagline at some point, or even make a space on your website so that people can learn more and you can say, this is why I do what I do. What I love about that also is that also attracts the kind of clients that are attracted to, first of all, generous humans, but also it gives them something to be proud of, because through you, they give, even if that's not their thing, right? And then it creates community. So I would say, like I said, first of all, thank you for just making that a part of your business practice. But secondly, just thinking through as a business owner, what are some small ways that you could kickstart that within your own business? Maybe it's running one um, thing per year and making a portion of those sales. If you don't want to do all the sales of your entire year, just do one particular piece, a, a challenge or something, and make that a part of it.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are listening, not watching, like I raised my hand. I am guilty. I don't talk about it enough. So I'm taking notes on who's actually working on some of my operating systems. So I'm going to go back to work with my CEO and make sure that I'm adding in some of these things here to make that a priority and share that more, because that sense of belonging there that you talked about, like we're a part of it. And that is so key. So I love this conversation. Thank you so much. I know that you've got a generosity kickstart kit to kind of help people get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and where to find it? And of course, we'll put the link in the show notes as well.
Yes. So I have a generosity kickstart so that it's just a few things. Many of them are kind of what we've talked about here in terms of how do I just get started, right? And so you can find that on my website or DM me on my Instagram at Let's Go Give Y'all. I'm Southern if you haven't figured that out, and we'll put that in the notes. And then, of course, because this will be happening in January, I do a virtual group session where we literally go in and create our focus statement. We create our budget, and we also create something that I think is really important, which is the impact statement or your own, I call it your own measuring stick, so that you understand what success looks like for you, what giving should feel like for you. We have to create that meaning for ourselves. And so that's kind of that final piece that I walk through with everyone, which is, okay, what's going to be meaningful for me? And I want to have that in the same way that I have a focus statement.
Oh, so beautiful. What a perfect place to end this today. So all the links will be in the show notes, guys, so you can check that out. Make sure to join, stay connected with Alison. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Sounds